I've never believed in monsters. Not the kind hiding under beds or stalking forests. No, the monsters I fear are the ones who smile at you across the dinner table, wear wedding rings, and kiss you goodnight. My name is Thomas Rainer. I'm a 38-year-old architect living in Vermont. I used to think I had the kind of life people envied. Comfortable house near the woods, stable job, a beautiful wife who always smelled like rosemary and old books. Her name is Elise. We'd been married for 7 years, and until 3 months ago I would have sworn she was the love of my life. Then something changed. It began subtly. Small things, almost unnoticeable. She started locking the bathroom door, even though she never had before. She began going out late at night, saying she was just taking walks to clear her head. Her eyes, which used to be warm and stormy blue, started to feel glassy, like the lights were on but no one was home. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Elise had recently left her job as a high school librarian without much explanation. She said she wanted to find something more meaningful. I supported her, of course. I always tried to be the kind of husband who listens. But deep down, her sudden desire to quit didn't feel like her. Then came the humming. I started hearing it at night, low, rhythmic, almost like a chant. The first few times I thought it was coming from outside. But once, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. and found her, standing in front of our bedroom mirror. Her reflection was blurred in the darkness, but I could hear her humming that eerie, droning melody. When I whispered her name, she didn't respond. She just kept humming, eyes locked on her reflection, a small smile twitching at the corners of her mouth. She didn't remember any of it the next morning. I must have been sleepwalking, she said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. You know how weird my dreams get. But Elise never sleepwalked before, and she sure as hell never hummed songs that made my skin crawl. I tried brushing it off. I tried. But the humming got louder, more frequent. Sometimes I caught her standing, in strange positions around the house, arms spread wide like she was embracing something invisible. Once I found her kneeling in the backyard at dawn, whispering to the soil. I couldn't make out the words, but I'm sure they weren't in English. I started doing what any rational husband would do. I Googled it. Sleepwalking wife, sudden behavior change, demonic possession. Yes, I went there. Most of the answers were unhelpful, though one Reddit thread about cult infiltration made my heart freeze. It sounded insane, but some of the descriptions? They matched Elise to a chilling degree. I knew I had to dig deeper, so I began going through her things. Her phone was locked with a password I didn't know, which was new, but her laptop wasn't. And buried deep in her browser history were searches that didn't make sense for someone who spent most of her adult life reading Austen and Bronte. The Gathering of the Veiled. How to Cleanse the Body of Old Identities. Sisters of Hollow Light Rituals. At first I thought it was some kind of esoteric spiritual retreat, like yoga but creepier. But when I searched those terms myself, I found only fragments. Obscure forums, blurry symbols, an archived page from something called the Hymnal of Renewal, which I swear vanished an hour after I bookmarked it. I confronted her, gently. At first, Elise, have you been part of something? Some group? She didn't answer. She just stared at me with that new, empty expression she wore more and more these days. Then she smiled. You wouldn't understand, Thomas, she said, like I was a child asking about taxes. But I'm happier now. This is what real clarity feels like. I should have left then, or called someone. But I didn't. I was still clinging to the Elise I married, the one who used to fall asleep with her head on my chest and whisper, "Don't let the world change us." The Elise I loved was still in there, I told myself. Somewhere. I became obsessed with finding proof. I took photos of her strange behavior, recorded audio of her night humming, even followed her once, at 2 a.m, when she left the house barefoot, wearing only a thin cotton robe in the freezing March cold. She walked through the woods, her pace unnaturally steady, and disappeared behind an old boarded-up church just off the county road. I waited an hour before she came back out, eyes wide, lips moving in silent prayer. She didn't even notice me crouching in the trees. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, her breaths slow and mechanical. I kept thinking about that church, about what she might be doing in there, what they might be doing to her. I finally reached out to someone. An old friend of mine from college, Marcus, worked in private security and had dealt with cult infiltration cases before. When I described what I'd seen, he didn't laugh. He didn't even sound surprised. Could be some fringe offshoot, he said. Vermont's full of them. Nature cults, death cults, rebirth cults. You name it. He offered to come up for the weekend and check things out. I agreed. But Elise didn't like the idea. When I told her Marcus was visiting, she grew tense. Her hands clenched so tightly I saw blood well beneath her nails. I don't want strangers in the house, she said flatly. Especially ones who don't belong. Her voice was wrong. Too deep, too calm. He's a friend, Elise, I said. He's worried about you, I'm worried about you. She stared at me for a long moment, then tilted her head. I'm evolving, Thomas, that's all. Some people grow wings. Others, like you, cut them off. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But I do know one thing. The woman lying beside me isn't my wife, and I'm starting to think she never was. Marcus arrived on a rainy Friday afternoon. I hadn't told Elise the exact time, just said he was dropping by sometime this weekend. Still, when he pulled up the gravel driveway, she was already standing at the front window, motionless as if she'd been waiting. She didn't greet him, didn't offer tea, didn't even make eye contact. She always this friendly? Marcus asked under his breath as he dropped his duffel by the coat rack. His sarcasm usually comforted me, but today it only deepened the weight in my chest. Not always, I murmured. She used to be someone else. We tried to act normal that first evening, played cards, drank whiskey. Elise mostly sat in silence watching us. Every so often I'd catch her eyes on Marcus, not curious, not annoyed, but calculating. Like she was studying a chessboard, only she understood. Marcus leaned in while Elise was in the kitchen, murmuring, low. She's not sleepwalking, Tom, this is something else. Her stillness, too precise, eyes too aware. It's not madness, it's doctrine. That word, doctrine, made me shiver. That night, Elise didn't sleep beside me. I found her curled in the living room armchair, staring at the fireplace like it was showing her something only she could see. Her lips were moving silently. I didn't disturb her. The next morning, Marcus was gone. His duffel bag remained by the coat rack, his phone still charging on the hallway outlet, but he was nowhere in the house. Elise, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Did Marcus say anything before he left? She blinked slowly at me over her coffee. He said he needed to go for a walk. He didn't say where? No. A pause. Maybe he found what he was looking for. The way she said it, it wasn't just eerie. It felt like a warning. I called his phone. Voicemail. I called the police and filed a missing persons report. They asked the usual questions, promised to send someone. But this was Vermont. Rural, slow, full of places to vanish. I knew better than to expect urgency. I retraced every step I could. Marcus had slept in the guest room. His boots were still by the door. I found footprints leading out into the woods, but they were muddied by rain and led nowhere. It was like the forest had swallowed him whole. That night I confronted Elise again. Not gently. "What did you do to him?" She looked up from the kitchen table, entirely calm. "He didn't belong. He saw too much." "Saw what, Elise? What the hell are you part of?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked to me, barefoot on the cold tile. Her face was inches from mine when she whispered, "You're asking the wrong questions. You should be asking what you are a part of." She reached up and touched my cheek with a tenderness that made my stomach churn. "You don't remember, do you?" I jerked back. "What are you talking about?" But she only smiled and walked upstairs, humming. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study going through old files, emails, anything to distract me. At around 3 a.m. I heard a creak outside my window. I peeked through the blinds and nearly screamed. There were people standing on my lawn, 8 or 9 of them, all in long, dark robes, faces obscured by hoods, silent, still, as if they were waiting for a sign. I rushed outside, barefoot, heart pounding. But by the time I reached the front porch, they were gone. Not even footprints in the wet grass. I ran back in, locked every door and window. When I turned around, Elise was standing at the foot of the stairs. "They wanted to meet you," she said softly. "But you're not ready yet." "For what?" I shouted. "What the hell is going on, Elise? Who are they?" She tilted her head. "They're the sisters and brothers of the Hollow Light. And we belong to them." I backed away. "You're sick, you need help." "I'm not the one who's forgotten," she said almost lovingly. "You used to believe too. Before the forgetting. Before the reset." "Elise, stop. You're scaring me." She stepped closer, eyes glittering in the dim hallway light. "You think you married a stranger, Thomas? No. You were the one who came first. You brought me to them." The room spun. I gripped the banister. "You're lying. You begged them to erase it. Said you couldn't live with what you'd done. So they took it from you. Your memories. Your role. I don't believe you." "Then ask yourself this," she whispered. "Why does the church behind the trees feel familiar?" I froze, because it did. Somewhere deep in my bones I knew the creaking pews, the rotting wood, the hymns hummed through candle smoke. I'd never stepped inside it, not that I remembered, but part of me knew that building. And then something else hit me like a freight train. I remembered a room, underground, a circle of people in hoods. I remembered whispering a name I couldn't pronounce, cutting my hand, letting blood drip onto a stone. A woman's face, Elise's, but younger, scared, and my voice. "Don't worry. I'll protect you. I'll forget it all for you." I stumbled to the floor. What did I do? I whispered. Elise knelt beside me, her voice soothing. "You gave them everything. Your faith, your memories, even me." "I don't understand." "You will." Outside, thunder rolled. A distant hum, faint but growing, rose from the woods. That same eerie chant I'd heard for weeks. Only now I knew. I'd heard it long ago. They were coming. Not for her, for me. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Not after Elise's confession. Not after the buried memories clawed their way to the surface. The chanting outside grew louder near dawn, low, guttural, and rhythmic. Not in English. Not in any language I'd ever studied. but I understood it. Somehow. My skin reacted before my brain could form meaning. Goosebumps rose. My mouth went dry. Elise was already dressed when I came down the stairs. She wore a long black cloak embroidered with silver thread, a symbol at the center, a spiral blooming outward like an eye opening in reverse. "They're waiting," she said, calm, certain. "I'm not going," I replied. My voice cracked. I didn't agree to this. She turned to me slowly. "You did. A long time ago. Elise, I don't remember. That was the deal, Thomas. You made them erase it so you could live with yourself. But it was never gone. Just hidden." I looked out the window. In the clearing past the tree line, torches flickered. Dozens of figures in cloaks stood in a perfect circle, and at the center, something was rising. A stone platform. Or maybe a grave. "Elise," I whispered. "What did I do?" She stepped toward me, placed both hands on my chest. "You led them. You were the mouthpiece. The harbinger." I shook my head violently. "No, that can't be me. You were the first to see him, the first to offer a body." I pulled away from her, disgust twisting in my gut. "A body? What does that mean?" But I already knew, I just didn't want to believe it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Sacrifice." Suddenly, everything made sense. The dreams, the blood, the faces I'd seen in flickers, always screaming. Elise's sudden change. Her return to form. My insomnia. My sense of guilt with no source. The endless feeling of déjà vu. This house. That church I hadn't married into a cult. I had built it. I don't remember walking into the woods. One moment I was staring out the window. The next, I was standing in the circle, torchlight dancing across my face. The air buzzed with static. The ground throbbed under my feet. The crowd parted as Elise led me forward. At the center on the stone slab, something lay beneath a black velvet cloth. I didn't want to look, but my legs moved of their own accord. They began to chant. One voice, then two, then dozens. Asher Althaham. Return through the vessel. Open the hollow. I stopped at the edge of the slab. "Elise," I said, voice shaking. "What's under there?" Her eyes were wet. Not with fear, with awe. "Your offering." Slowly I reached out, pulled back the cloth and screamed. It was Marcus. Pale, still, a perfect cut across his throat. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. "You killed him." "No," Elise said softly. "You did." I turned to her, horrified. "You're lying." Her expression was heartbreaking. Like a mother watching a child forget his name. "You did it 3 nights ago. In your sleep. You brought him into the woods. You laid him here. You spoke the words. No. No, I would never." "You did. Because he told you to." The crowd chanted louder. The symbols on the stone glowed faintly red. "You wanted to remember, Thomas. So he let you." My knees gave out. I hit the mossy ground, trembling. Somewhere in my mind, a voice laughed, familiar, ancient, and mine. The sky above the clearing split open, not literally, but in some other, deeper sense. The stars warped, the trees bent inward, and from the slab, smoke rose, thick, oily, blacker than night. The smoke twisted upward, spiraling into a shape, long limbs stretching and rearranging like a spider rebuilding its body. At its center, eyes opened, dozens, all blinking in unison. I couldn't scream, I couldn't breathe. This was God, or a god. Not of light, not of love, a god of hunger, the hollow light. It entered Marcus's body with a hiss like 1,000 snakes. The corpse jerked upright, then settled. The eyes opened, Marcus's eyes, but wrong. Too wide, too knowing. He spoke in my voice. You remembered. The voice rattled through my bones like a tuning fork pressed to my spine. I didn't mean to, I whispered. I didn't want this. But you did, the voice said. You asked, you begged, you bled, and now I am here. The cult bowed as one. Elise knelt beside me. I kept your seat warm, she said softly, but it's time you took it back. In the days that followed, the police came. I told them Marcus went hiking and never returned. They searched. They found nothing. I cried. I lied. I smiled. Elise never left my side. At night I woke with symbols burned into my skin, symbols that vanished by morning. Sometimes I'd see Marcus standing at the edge of the woods, still and smiling, his eyes glowing faintly red. Sometimes he whispered my name through the air vents. I never responded, because part of me still remembers the deal. I gave up memory for peace. Then I gave up peace for power. Now there is no forgetting, only waiting. For the next offering, for the next believer. And when I pass people in town, I wonder which ones are